In 1937, Newark was shaken by the disappearance of a young girl, Mona Tinsley, a case of innocence lost, suspicion raised, and a mystery that would grip Britain. But before we begin, I want to thank you all. Reaching 1,000 subscribers means so much to me, and it's all because of your support and engagement. So, sit back as we uncover the case of Mona Tinsley. 14th November 1926, Newark-on-Trent, Nottinghamshire, England. Wilfred and Lillian Tinsley welcomed their daughter into the world. They named her Mona Tinsley. The Tinsley family lived in Newark, a market town in Nottinghamshire. According to sources, they had 7 children. Wilfred worked to support the household. Lillian managed the home and cared for the children. The family were respectable working-class people. Mona grew up in Newark. According to sources, she was a sensible, friendly girl. She attended the local school. She went to Sunday school at the Methodist Church. Life for the Tinsley family followed a familiar pattern: work, school, church. The routines of an ordinary working-class household. In October 1935, the Tinsley family took in a lodger. His real name was Frederick Nodder, but he told the Tinsleys his surname was Hudson. He had been introduced to the family by Lillian's sister, Edith Grimes, with whom Nodder had been lodging in Sheffield. According to sources, Nodder lodged with the Tinsleys for just 3 weeks before they evicted him from their home for non-payment of rent. However, the Tinsleys later told police that his departure had been on amicable terms. During the short time Nodder had lived in their household, he had been popular with their 7 children, who had all come to know him as Uncle Fred. After leaving the Tinsley household, Nodder moved to Retford, a small town several miles from Newark. He rented a house known as Peacehaven in Hayton. Tuesday, 5th January 1937, a cold afternoon in Newark. Mona Tinsley attended school as usual. She was 10 years old. At around 12:30, she went home for lunch. She returned to school for the afternoon classes. School finished at approximately 3:20 in the afternoon. Mona left the school building. She walked towards the bus station. A schoolboy later testified that he saw Mona at the bus station with a man, but he could not give an accurate description of the man. A bus conductor named Stanley Betts also testified. He stated that he saw a middle-aged man traveling between Newark and Retford with a girl matching Mona's description. By 9 o'clock that evening, Mona had not returned home. Her parents became worried. They contacted the police. A search began immediately. At dawn the following morning, a full-scale search launched. Hundreds of volunteers joined police officers. They searched every conceivable area of Newark-on-Trent. They looked in gardens, sheds, empty buildings, ponds. They found no trace of Mona. A neighbor came forward with information. She told police that she had seen a man loitering outside the school gates on 5th January. She recognized him as the Tinsleys' former lodger, the man the children had called Uncle Fred. Police questioned Wilfred and Lillian Tinsley about their former lodger. When asked if they had ever had a lodger, Lillian exclaimed, "Oh, it can't be him." Reluctantly, the Tinsleys passed on contact details for Lillian's sister, Edith Grimes, who lived in Sheffield. Police contacted Edith Grimes and her husband. The Grimes proved uncooperative. They flatly denied knowing the whereabouts of the former lodger. Eventually, under questioning, Mr. Grimes admitted that the man had visited them over Christmas, but he denied knowing his address. A neighbor was able to offer a description. The man had visited the Grimes household on 27th December, arriving in a lorry with a sign saying Retford on the side. This gave police the breakthrough they needed. By an extensive trawl of haulage firms in the Retford area, police were able to track down Frederick Nodder. On the late evening of 6th January, police arrived at his rented home, Peacehaven, in Hayton, near Retford. They questioned him. Producing a photograph of Mona and asking if he knew the child, Nodder confirmed he did indeed used to know her, but claimed not to have seen Mona for approximately 15 months following his eviction from the Tinsley household. Questioned as to his movements the previous day, Nodder confirmed he had indeed been in Newark on 5th January, but claimed that he had simply been looking for work. He further claimed to have returned to Retford alone on the 3:45 bus, approximately 10 minutes before Mona was believed to have been abducted. As police questioned Nodder, other officers began interviewing his neighbors. One of these neighbors claimed to police she had seen a young girl matching Mona's description at Nodder's premises earlier that day. Another neighbor was able to confirm to police that at midday on 6th January, a young brunette girl wearing a blue dress had been standing in the back doorway of his house, watching Nodder digging in his garden. This combination of eyewitness testimony was enough to detain Nodder. At 11 o'clock that evening, he was arrested on a bastardy warrant. Police had learned from Edith Grimes that Nodder had been the subject of an affiliation order. Both his home, Peacehaven, and his garden were searched extensively. On 10th January 1937, Frederick Nodder was charged with Mona's abduction. The lack of a body precluded a formal charge of murder. The Chief Constable of Newark, Harry Barnes, decided to seek the assistance of Scotland Yard. A decision was made to extensively search every house, drain, ditch, and pond within 3 miles of Peacehaven. This search was at the time one of the most extensive in British police history, although it would ultimately prove fruitless. Before the Scotland Yard officers left Hayton, they informed their counterparts of their conviction that Mona's body had been thrown into the River Idle, and of their fears the child's body had been swept into the North Sea. On 9th and 10th March 1937, Nodder appeared at Birmingham Assizes. He was tried before Mr. Justice Swift, charged with Mona's abduction, the taking of the girl by fraud with the intent of depriving her father of possession of her, of detaining her by fraud, of decoying and enticing her into his possession, and of unlawfully stealing and carrying away the child and secreting her. Nodder was found guilty. Mr. Justice Swift sentenced him to 7 years penal servitude. As he passed sentence, the judge spoke words that would prove prophetic. He told Nodder, "It may be that time will reveal the dreadful secret you carry in your breast." Nodder was taken to prison to serve his sentence, but the police did not give up. They continued searching for Mona. They believed she had been murdered. They believed Nodder had hidden her body somewhere. They were determined to find her. On 6 June 1937, 5 months after Mona disappeared, a family went rowing on the River Idle near Bawtry, Yorkshire. They discovered a body floating in the water. They contacted the police immediately. Officers arrived and recovered the remains. The body was badly decomposed. Adiposia, a waxy substance that forms on bodies exposed to moisture, had prevented extensive decomposition, but the remains were desiccated. A post-mortem examination was conducted in a nearby stable. The examination revealed that the child had been strangled with a narrow ligature, possibly a shoelace or bootlace. The remains were too desiccated to determine whether the child had been sexually assaulted prior to death. Police dredged the river. They recovered a brown tweed coat and 1 Wellington boot. The items belonged to Mona Tinsley. The body was Mona. On 10th June 1937, 3 weeks prior to Nodder being charged with murder, a funeral service for Mona was conducted at Newark Methodist Church, where Mona had attended Sunday school. The funeral service was attended by hundreds of people, united in disbelief and grief. Several hundred people lined the streets as her coffin was led from the Methodist Church to Newark Cemetery, where her body was interred. On 28 June 1937, Frederick Nodder was formally charged by Superintendent Burkitt with having committed the murder with malice aforethought of Mona Lillian Tinsley. He was brought from his prison cell to Retford Police Station and charged. 5 months after Nodder had been formally charged with the murder of Mona Tinsley, he appeared at Nottingham Assizes to be tried for her murder. This second trial began on 22 November 1937. Norman Burkitt appeared on behalf of the prosecution. Maurice Healey appeared on behalf of the defense. At this second trial, the bus conductor Stanley Betts testified. He stated that he had seen a man whom he positively identified as Frederick Nodder traveling between Newark and Retford with a girl matching Mona's description on 5 January. He testified that Nodder had purchased a return ticket for himself, but only a single ticket for the girl. Sir Bernard Spilsbury, the renowned pathologist, testified. He stated that Mona had been strangled from behind with a narrow ligature, possibly a shoelace or bootlace. Maurice Healey, defending Nodder, argued his client had no actual motive to commit the murder. He advanced the theory that Mona had been abducted by another unknown individual while traveling alone to Sheffield, and that this individual had committed the murder. This time, Nodder went into the witness box. He described that he had met Mona when she came out of school on 5 January. According to his testimony, they had boarded the 4:45 bus to Retford and from there to his house at Peacehaven. After supper, Mona had been put to bed in his own double room and he had slept downstairs. The following day, he claimed, he had placed Mona on a bus to Sheffield with instructions, both verbal and written, as to how to reach her aunt's home and a note of explanation for her visit. The jury did not believe him. After hearing 2 days of testimony, they returned a verdict of guilty. Mr. Justice McNarton looked Frederick Nodder in the eye and told him, "Justice has slowly but surely overtaken you." When asked if he had anything to say in relation to the verdict of guilty, Nodder replied, "I shall go out of this court with a clear conscience." Nodder launched an appeal against his sentence. He contended that the evidence presented against him at his trial was purely circumstantial and not conclusive of guilt. His appeal was heard on 13 December before 3 judges in the Court of Appeal. The appeal was dismissed on the same day. Frederick Nodder was hanged at Lincoln Prison at 8 o'clock in the morning on 30 December 1937. His executioners were Tom Pierpoint and Stanley Cross. According to sources, Nodder's refusal to admit his guilt in Mona's abduction and murder, and his refusal to reveal the location of her body, led to him becoming known in contemporary media as the man who said nothing. Mona Lillian Tinsley was 10 years old. She had been born on 14 November 1926. She was a sensible, friendly girl. She attended school in Newark. She went to Sunday school at the Methodist Church. She had 6 siblings. Her family loved her. On the afternoon of 5 January 1937, Mona left school and was seen at the bus station with a man. The man was Frederick Nodder, a former lodger at her family's home, whom she and her siblings had known as Uncle Fred. Nodder took her to his house at Peacehaven in Hayton. What happened there, only Nodder knew. He never admitted his guilt. He never revealed the truth. He went to the gallows maintaining his innocence, declaring he left the court with a clear conscience. 5 months after Mona vanished, her body was found floating in the River Idle. She had been strangled with a narrow ligature from behind. The post-mortem examination could not determine whether she had been sexually assaulted, but according to some sources, evidence exists to suggest Frederick Nodder had been a paedophile and that during the 3 weeks he had lodged within the Tinsley household in late 1935, he had developed a sexual obsession with Mona. The murder of Mona Tinsley is often cited in English law discussions concerning the no body, no murder principle. Before this case, it was extremely difficult to prosecute a person for murder without a body, because proving that the victim was dead was challenging. Frederick Nodder was initially convicted of abduction, since Mona's body had not been found. Only after her remains were discovered was he charged with murder. The case highlighted the limitations of requiring a body in murder prosecutions and contributed to the recognition that a person may be convicted of murder even where a body is not recovered, provided the evidence is sufficiently strong. Mona Tinsley's case also demonstrated the importance of persistence in police work. The massive search for her body initially failed, but police did not give up. They continued searching. They continued investigating. 5 months later, their conviction that Mona's body had been thrown into the River Idle was proven correct. Justice, as Mr. Justice McNarton said, had slowly but surely overtaken Frederick Nodder. Mona Lillian Tinsley rests in Newark Cemetery. She was 10 years old, a sensible, friendly girl who attended Sunday school, a child who trusted a man she called Uncle Fred, a victim of a predator who refused to admit his guilt even as he walked to the gallows. Mona's case changed English law. Her name became a landmark in legal history. But she should be remembered not just for the legal precedent her murder created, but for the child she was, a 10-year-old girl who deserved to grow up, a life stolen by a man who said nothing.